Hello and welcome to my newly frosted garden. Last night was our first frost on October 15th. Today is the 16th. And the garden is done for the season. I'm gonna take you through really quick, just kind of show you what I have going on out here. For the most part, it's all cleaned out. There is still a pile of stuff back here that needs to be like taken out of here, but for the most part all the plants are pulled up. So here I had some kale. It was eaten, so there is actually one plant down here that's still alive, but it was frosted on. The strawberries have a nice layer of frost. This tower of stuff is completely dead. I needed to pull everything out and put this in the garage for the winter. This is my stack of plants. This is about half of it. The other half went to the compost, the city compost this week. This will go next week. And here it is with nothing in it. I mean, there's still some things. I left these marigolds. They've been frosted on now, so those will die. More than likely, they may not. I don't know. We'll see. Down here, all the beans are pulled out. This dill is somehow still alive. It's supposed to frost again tonight, so this may not make it. This tub, I planted some lettuce seeds in it and I put this plastic over it to see if I could get some germination. This is my neighbor's cat that jumped in here with me, so it's fine. There's no plants in here for him to eat. But I don't know that anything is gonna make it out of this, because I came out here this morning and pulled this plastic up, and yeah, it's kind of icy in there. There is some little green sprouts though, so I don't know. We're just gonna leave that and see what happens today. It may warm up and it may be fine. I don't know. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you through most of the plants I had planted out here and tell you what I thought about them, if I will be replanting them. I'm probably not gonna do all of them. I may do a video just of tomatoes because I had a lot of tomatoes. Do you want out? I mean, you jumped in here. You can jump out. There. Oh, he just jumped out. Okay. I let him out, but he jumped. So, that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna head into my office so I can look at my spreadsheet and give you better information. And that's what we're gonna do. So welcome to my mostly dead garden. All right, so hello from my office. I made a fresh cup of coffee in this festive Halloween mug, and I am going to take you through everything I planted this year in the 2020 garden. I am going to do tomatoes in a separate video. So if you're looking for only tomato varieties, I will put that up in the second part, right after I do this first part. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is beans. Now, I grew pole beans and I did bush beans this year. I do not think I will be growing bush beans next year at all. I only have so much space, and I think that my best use of my space is to only do pole beans. It seemed like for me that pole beans produced more and they took up less space. So I did rattlesnake pole beans and purple potted pole beans. Both of those seeds came from Baker Creek, and I saved a bunch of seeds from them this year, so I have plenty for next year. Those beans were beautiful. They were so delicious. It didn't really matter what size you picked them, they were good. They didn't get tough if they got too big. They did get a little bit stringy. The purple potted ones specifically, if they got too big, I had to pull the strings off when I broke them, but that was not really that big of a deal. Later in the season, I did plant some Kentucky Wonder pole beans. I got those seeds from M.I. Gardener. They produced well, but I planted those in July. I planted the other beans in May. So next year, I think I'm going to do all 3 varieties, but I'm going to plant them on one whole side of the arch trellis. So as far as bush beans go, I grew burgundy bush beans, dragon tongue, and jade and top crop. The royal burgundy bush beans were probably my most productive, but they weren't as good as the pole beans. We'll just say that. They were good, but they weren't as good as the pole beans. Now, I've heard really good things about the jade bush beans, but my plants just did not do well, and I don't know why. They just never really made that many beans. Each plant made maybe 2 or 3 beans, whereas my pole beans just kept producing. So I think that next year I will focus only on pole beans, and I will take that bush bean patch that I used this year and do something else with it. I don't know, I may end up putting some peppers there or something that goes out later in the season, because that area of the garden does stay shaded for most of the day until the sun moves itself back up, so it goes straight over my house to the garden. Next up is cucumbers. So if you have been around here for since last summer, you'll remember that I grew 2 cucumber plants last year, and I was absolutely overrun with cucumbers. This year I had 3 cucumber plants. I had 1 green dragon burpless, and I had 2 muncher cucumber plants. And I got maybe like 10 cucumbers total all year, and none of them were bigger than, you know, 6 inches. So I'm not super impressed with the cucumbers this year. So my plan for next year, the one half of the arch is going to have all pole beans. The other half is going to have all cucumbers. I did also buy a new variety of cucumber. I don't remember what it's called. I got it from Botanical Interests, but I'm gonna try 3 varieties next year, I think. Maybe I'll end up with another one, I don't know. I can do 4 cucumber plants on one side of that arch trellis, because I have 2 panels next to each other. So maybe I'll just do 4 different types. I don't know. But cucumbers this year did not do great. Will I replant them? Yes. The next thing on my list, I'm looking at my garden journal spreadsheet. I do my garden journaling in Google Drive. It's on a Google Sheet. I have a video where I talk about garden journaling. I'll put that down below if you want to see how I garden journal. I take you through kind of how I set it up and how I have it arranged. I really like it. It works well for me. So the next thing on my list is herbs. The Emily basil that I planted this year did really well until it started raining all the time. It rained for like 2 weeks here almost every day, and that was too much for it. And then that's when I started getting spots and yellow leaves and all of that. I tried to keep those plants pruned back pretty well. It did taste good. It did really well until it got super wet outside. So I will be regrowing that. I also bought another type of basil for next year. I don't remember what it is. I think it's, actually let me reference my seed list. Let me see if I've updated it. I may not have updated it yet. So I will be regrowing some Emily basil for next year. I also had a lot of Thai basil this year. Thai basil is an amazing herb. It really goes well with Asian dishes. I made a really delicious Thai basil fried rice this year, and I will be regrowing Thai basil just so I can make that dish alone. It's also really good for the pollinators. Once that plant bolts, the flavor of the leaves does not change, unlike some other types of herbs or basils in particular. So I will be regrowing Thai basil again. It grows really well. It's easy. The plants got huge, and it was way more than we needed, but I will continue to grow it. I'll probably grow 4 or 5 plants again like I did this year, because they're pretty and the pollinators like them, so worth it. The next thing up on my list is lettuce. This year I planted a lot of lettuce in the tower planter that I got from Dollar Tree. Now, I was not super impressed with the lettuce that I grew in that planter. I think it was because I planted it too close together, because I just broadcast sowed seeds on the top level of that thing. And the mix that I planted on top of that was the Rocky Top lettuce mix from Baker Creek. I do like that mix a lot. I like the varieties that are in it, but I didn't necessarily like how it grew in the top of that planter. And I think that it was because I planted it too close, but that planter, each level is only like 4 or 5 inches deep, which is not super deep. I did get some other varieties of lettuce to try. I have some planted in that tub I showed you earlier in the backyard now. I don't know if it's gonna come up or if it's gonna survive. We're gonna try it again in the spring if it doesn't. I am also still failing on the kale front. So next spring I'm gonna try kale, and I'm gonna try my hardest to make it make kale because I have not yet been able to grow kale and have it like make kale, you know, like make more than like 1 leaf at a time to eat. So that's my goal. Melons. So I grew Crimson Sweet watermelons, and I also grew Minnesota Midget cantaloupes. Those were both on the side of the arch trellis next to the beans. I will not be regrowing any sort of melon next year. I have decided that they take up too much space and you don't really get that much out of them. I did get 3 watermelons from my plants. I had 2 watermelon plants. The biggest one was 7 pounds. The other 2 were 3 to 4 pounds. So not super impressive. The cantaloupes, I got 1 and it did not taste good. So peas. So peas I did in the spring, and I put them outside. I started them inside and I put them in the ground on March 23rd. I planted them in my basement on March 3rd. So 20 days after I planted them, I put them outside. I did get some peas. I actually got quite a bit of peas. I did yellow golden peas, and then I did the mammoth melting snow peas. The yellow peas produced earlier than the mammoth melting peas did. They were both very good. I would pick the mammoth melting snow peas over the golden sweet peas, only for flavor and the number of peas you get per pod. You can eat the pods, but I did do, I think one time I had a ton of pods and I actually pulled the peas out of the pods and we ate the peas out of the pods, and they were absolutely delicious. So I probably will try to do some more peas next spring. I have 2 sugar magnolia tendril peas out right now that are alive, but I haven't watered them. So I don't know how long those will last. I may get peas off of them, I may not, I don't know. But I will be trying to do peas again. Peppers. I was happy with my pepper production this year. Last year was absolutely terrible. This year was so much better. I grew all my peppers from seed. I did not put them out until May 22nd here. And I started those seeds, I soaked them, I put them in wet coffee filters on February 13th. And then I potted them up into dirt. So I took them out of the coffee filters and put them in little pots of potting soil around February 22nd. And they all went into the ground on May 22nd. So those take a while to get established, and I did top my pepper plants this year. I do think that made a difference. In years past, I have not had success with peppers. They grow super tall, but they don't ever make any peppers. So this year, I topped my plants, meaning I just cut the top off, and that made them branch out more. They were very bushy. They were much bushier than they were last year when they were not topped. I will be regrowing most of these varieties, well, no, let me take that back. I will not be regrowing some of these, and some of these I will. So the first one is the Chocolate Beauty Sweet Bell. Those seeds I got from In My Gardener. Those I did not think were going to germinate. I put them in the coffee filter just like I did all the other seeds. None of them ever sprouted. I put them in dirt anyway. One came up, it was super scraggly looking. I was like, okay, are you gonna make it? It did make it. I put it in the ground with everything else. It made a couple peppers, not a lot. It never really got as big as the other varieties did. So I may try that one again next year, but I might just do one plant of it. The Craig's Grande Jalapeno, amazing. Well, okay, I had 5 of those, which is a lot, but those things just busted out with jalapenos. They were loaded with peppers, and they're delicious. I will definitely be regrowing those for sure. The next one is the Keystone Resistant Giant Bell Pepper, and these I will regrow. They did make really big peppers. I only had one turn red for me. I had a problem with pests getting in my peppers before they turned a color, and so I would pick them when they were green. I did have one turn red, and it was so good. So I will be regrowing the Keystone Resistant Giant Bell. Those seeds also came from In My Gardener. The Craig's Grande Jalapeno seeds came from Baker Creek. And then I also grew pepperoncinis and cayennes. I will not be regrowing either of those. I did get some Anaheim pepper seeds to try for next year from Baker Creek. Those are the peppers that you will find in the little can of diced green chilies. And so I thought it would be fun to grow those and try to like recreate the cans of diced green chilies. And the last thing I'm going to cover in this video is squash. Basically, I'm not gonna really do squash anymore. Until I have more space, I don't think I'm gonna be regrowing squash. So this year I grew 3 types of squash. I did them all in grow bags. I think that may have been my issue. I did delicata, which is a winter squash, and then I did Italian striped zucchini and yellow crookneck, which are both summer squash. So the delicata made me 1.5 delicata squashes. One was normal size and one was kind of like weird shaped. I got 2 to 3 small yellow crookneck squashes, and I got like 1 zucchini. If I can find the room next year to do 1 squash plant, maybe where I did the peppers this year, I could do 1 or 2. I may do some summer squash next year, like some zucchini or yellow crookneck. But as far as like winter squash goes, I don't think I'm gonna explore any more winter squash until we have more space to do long trailing vining plants. So that covers all of the garden minus the tomatoes. So I'm going to cut it off here. I will upload the second part of this review immediately after I finish this one, and it will go more in depth onto the tomato varieties I grew for 2020, what I thought of each variety, will I grow it again, and that sort of thing. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.